And we're on. Okay. Um, so tonight's topic is Ten Commandments, and I've called it God's Glasses, or Through God's Glasses, as my 13-year-old son thinks is a more appropriate name. I want to start off with a very personal story. I'm very happy that my mother and brother are on the webinar because it's something which will fascinate you, actually. See, I grew up in a family, or in a with a family that was very Jewish, very Zionistic. My father, in particular, very wealthy, Baruch Hashem, until we went bankrupt, and then and then um, not I'm going to say we weren't consciously observant. We weren't consciously observant. I think we were very good people. We were doing many mitzvahs without thinking about it. But we weren't consciously observant, and definitely you could not have labeled us as even orthodox or you know anything like that. In fact, growing up in Johannesburg, I left when I was 17 years old. I don't recall ever seeing a man wearing a black hat. Um,
There
I,
weren't any.
they were in actually in Yeovil and in different areas. There were some, but we just had nothing to do with them. Right? We never saw the frum world, so it was quite a shock. It was quite a shock to my family, my parents, my brothers, when at university I got caught up with a band of jolly Jews. And it's, I started to learn about Judaism and I loved it. I loved it and everything I learned, I read, I enjoyed, and I wanted to embrace it. I wanted to embrace it and start to start to live a more observant life. Uh, my parents have often asked me this question, and my friends from before have asked me this question. You know, what made you make this decision? Why did you change? Why did you change your lifestyle? It's a huge change, really, right? I one of the hardest things is I don't even eat my mother's food. That's very difficult for her, and I got to tell you, for me, because she's an exceptionally good cook. Um,
Yeah.
so I so oh, what happened to wait, we lost one guy. Gone. Okay. Um, oh,
Mama, you a good cook?
so I sorry, I'm gonna mute you, Jonathan, because I can. And um, well, my what was the answer? Why did I become religious? Why did I become observant? And the answer is that we all look at the world. Um, we thank you, Jonathan, for joining us for a little bit. We all look at the world a little. We all look at the world through glasses, right? We all have a way of looking at the world. So before I was religious, before I was religious, um, sorry, it's really bothering me with so few people that I should be um, so front and central here, but I'm still speaking. So before I was religious, I looked at the world with a certain mindset, right? I was looking at the world thinking, I will be, life is about the pleasures of life. Life is about being successful, successful financially, successful in relationships, um, and taking a lot from life. getting a lot out of life, enjoying life a lot, right? Basically, I wanted to be extremely wealthy and have a rich, a deep reservoir to provide for my benefits, right? For my enjoyment. That was my mindset, and for some reason, it must be the neshama, the soul my mother helped to bring into me, rebelled. My soul rebelled, and I was at university, and I remember consciously thinking, "Wow, this is so good, and it's never going to get better. It's just going to get more and more responsibilities." Um, what really, and I do thank my parents and acknowledge my parents for being the ones to have brought me up to have enough confidence, openness, and honesty to ask for myself, well, what is life about? Right? I was able to step back and say, well, these glasses aren't working for me. Nice to see you, Noah. Right? These glasses aren't working for me. I need, what is this world? How can we make sense of this world? And that's what I found in Judaism. Judaism offered me a, a way of life, an explanation for life that worked. It really worked for me. I still to this day think one of the most powerful messages maybe for me is from the beginning of the Mesilat Yesharim, this amazing book called the Path of the Just. Right? A 16th century rabbi, Italian rabbi of Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, where he says, the first thing is you got to clarify why you're living. And then he says, well, I'll tell you, from a Jewish point of view, you're living for something called the world to come. And he makes a fantastic argument about how what we're doing in this world is really preparing ourselves, is exercising our free will, preparing ourselves for that ultimate closeness, brilliance, benefit, joy of being close to God. So let's fast forward about 10 years. About 10 years, I was put on a shidduch. I went on a shidduch date, and I had a lovely South African woman who was my shadchan, Heather Sorota, who lived, actually, it was she lived right in the middle of Mea Shearim, was this South African woman she herself had not grown up observant. And she liked me, I liked her, and she set me up with all sorts of girls. And she kept on telling me, like, listen, I've got this Russian girl. I've got this Russian girl. A friend of mine, Rebbetzin Pels, has told me about her, and he says she's amazing. Do you want to try? And I was like, are you kidding? No, no way. Find me a nice South African girl. So we met some South African girls, we met some some American girls. Nothing was really working. And eventually she said, well, I think you're going to just have to meet the Russian girl. I was like, fine. And I met her, and in about 20 seconds, I knew that she was the one. Part of having to marry this girl, we were very firm, and we wanted to make sure we were doing everything kosher. She said, well, you're going to have to meet my rabbi. So I was like, fine, I'll meet your rabbi. So I remember on hot summer's day, sitting outside a Bagels bar in the old city, I went to good evening, Uri. I went to meet with Rabbi Shalom Schwartz. Rabbi Shalom Schwartz is Noah's father, and he was responsible at the time for the Aish HaTorah Russian program, and he was responsible for the trip that Yehudis had come to Israel on, and he had become her rabbi. In fact, I think she spent a lot of time at Schwartz's house, so she knows all the Kinderlach as well. So she was very nice, and he actually asked me. He said, "What are you looking for?" So by that stage, because she was my 13th shidduch, because I kept a little, I kept a diary of what I learned from each encounter with these fantastic women that were not going to be my wives. I narrowed it down by that stage. I said, well, honestly, I'm looking just for three things: a pretty girl, an intelligent girl, and someone easygoing. So he looks at me and goes, pretty? You think she's pretty? She's pretty. Intelligent? She definitely is. Easygoing? She's definitely not. I was like, okay, the Torah tells us follow the majority. Anything over 50% and you're winning. So there we got married. Fast forward about another 20 years, and we're living in Baltimore, and I'm doing some outreach, and it's I wasn't so happy where I was. It was more of a managerial job. I wanted to be teaching more. And I get a phone call. I get a phone call from a friend up the road. He says, Nitzan, there's a man in town. I think you might want to speak to him. I said, well, who is that man? He said, well, it's Shalom Schwartz. Do you know him? I'm like, do I know him? Like, what do you mean? Like, so we got together, and my Shalom Schwartz said, well, we've been running a program in Israel for about 5 years called Project Aseret, and I wonder if you'd be interested in it. I was like, actually, I'm very interested because I'm looking for something new to do. I am looking for a new direction to take. And I have to tell you that in my years of being a rabbi, in my years of doing outreach here in Baltimore, I found Judaism pretty complex. Judaism is complex. Life is complex. And Judaism, which is our way of life, therefore is also complex. So I was a bit, frustrated about, what I had this question. I don't know how consciously I had the question, but what do we have a really good explanation for the big picture of Judaism? What is Judaism? What is life about? What can we summarize it? And I like to summarize things. I like to think in general terms. So I went to this meeting, and Shalom Schwartz told me that he had been working in Israel for some time to think about something that could form a bridge between the religious and non-religious community in Israel, because they are very split. They don't talk to each other. They don't understand each other. I have it's hard to believe, especially with what's going on now, but I have a friend, Rabbi Johnny Schippel. Some of you know him, and he told me that he had some Israeli guests over for Friday night in New York, in Manhattan. Secular Israelis who had found their way, and they were talking about Shtisel, the Netflix. Right? So talking, and these Israelis said, it's an amazing program. Why? Because before we watched Shtisel, we thought that we were more scared. I think that was what he told me. We were more scared of Haredim than Arabs. Right? That a secular Israeli to say that is just, it's unbelievable. Wow, there's such a disconnect. There's a huge disconnect. So Shalom Schwartz had looked for something what can we Jews, all Jews, what can we do to, what can we do to, what can we speak about? What about being Jewish? What about Judaism can be a common language of that we can converse in? And he spoke to many people. I've never met her. I don't know if Noah's ever met her. Sharon Portugali. There was this woman in Lutnikit, actually, who he had been speaking to. And he met with her one day and said, Shalom, you know, what you want is there. You don't have to recreate the wheel. It's the Serata Dibrot. It's the 10 Commandments. And she said something amazing to him as well, said, but don't start from one, from God, because people will, you know, people have issues with God. Start from 10, which is interpersonal, and work down. And by the time you get to the God ones, people will be much more open to hearing what's included there. And that was a aha moment. That was a really a huge moment for Shalom and for what has come since. So the way I understand it is, if we take Judaism, we take life is complex. We take Judaism is complex. And we ask ourselves, well, what's the big picture? Tell me the big parameters. Tell me the general principles. That's what the Ten Commandments are. My martial parable is to a 3D movie. Have you all seen a 3D movie at some stage? It's a very, very complex technology. And one of the things about a 3D movie is you need to wear glasses. Right? If you don't wear the 3D glasses, you don't see the effect. So I kind of feel that's what the Torah is in general, right? That's the whole Torah is that you look at the world from a different, you see a different world. You live in a different world. And in particular, that's what the Ten Commandments are. They really are God's glasses that we are meant to look through. Now, I'm not going to go into building up the proof for this concept too much, because this is actually part 2 of a 2-part series. I think, no, I don't know, Tracy was on the first one, but basically, we could do that another time. What I want to do with you, though, is really get into what does it mean that these 10 commandments are like glasses. What does that mean? Let's explain. Let's explain in detail what they mean. So I want to give it over to you, and you can choose 1 to 10. 1 to 10. I'll tell them to you quickly. 1 is I'm the Lord your God. 2, do not have any other gods. 3, do not swear in God's name falsely. 4, keep Shabbat. 5, honor your parents. 6, do not murder. 7, do not commit adultery. 8, do not bear false witness. 8, do not steal. 9, do not bear false witness. And 10, do not covet. So go ahead. Which one do you want to start with? Okay. Tracy's hands up first. Tracy, do you want to?
Yep, I'll start. So, Noah, I am taking a class on Sundays with Shmuley Soroka as well.
Oh, very nice.
So this is how I found out about this course, because Rabbi Schwartz is his uncle.
My father.
Yes, your father. So I love the course on Sunday. And anyway, so
Tracy,
we've been doing
1 to 10. Which one?
10.
10. Coveting.
10.
You're making
Yes.
it too easy, Tracy.
Why?
Okay.
Well, because we know starting from 10, 10's the easiest, one's the hardest. That's why we go 10 to 1. You
No.
start from 10, you're making it easy for Nitsan.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, the thing
That's
Mark,
okay. We could
Mark,
start
why?
to get to a
Mark,
good
what
one.
were you gonna say? I like 10, Tracy. That's good. We're gonna
Okay. Well, so I said
Number
this in
5?
the.
honoring parents.
Do you want to know why, or do you just want me to say the number?
If you can keep it nice and short and interesting, we'd love to hear why.
Oh, okay. Well, with number 10, do not covet. If you covet anything, then it can lead to an ultimate act of murder, because you're coveting someone else's life and someone else's possessions. You don't like, you want theirs so much that you want it for yourself. You don't want them to have that. So ultimately you could just take them out and murder.
Okay.
And then and so you're not only turning your back on God, you're committing
Right.
all of them by coveting and not being true to yourself and not respecting your identity. You can't respect anybody else's identity. You don't value their identity. You don't value
Very
God.
good. Okay, Tracy, you're right. You're right. It's actually it's a terrible sin, Randy. It's a terrible sin. What though? Okay, so good. So Tracy, you understand very clearly, and it might not be clear to all of us as much as that, but that's fine. That's going to lead to murder. But okay, so let's start there. So here we have a commandment that on paper says to us, do not covet. And we understand that coveting is bad. So now what we have to do, since the role of the 10 commandments are to be glasses, are to be a mindset or a disposition, right? We're meant to be disposed to life in a certain way. Do not covet should dispose us. How does it dispose us? So, it's definitely these have frames, right? I mean, blinkers. Don't look at everyone else all the time. Okay. The question is, what should you be looking at? What should we be looking at? Because it's very hard to just live on negative, right? Don't do this, don't do that is important. There is bad in this world. There's negativity in this world. But what should we be doing? So go on. I prefer to, there's not that many of us. I prefer to be a more of a conversation. Anyone? What should, instead of coveting, what should we want? What should we be looking at?
Our role in what's our mission on earth?
What's our mission on earth? Okay, excellent, good. Have you taken the online Aseret course?
No, but we've had
You
this
have, you
discussion
took the
before.
course with me, but that's fine. It was a long time ago. We're gonna get there. Your mission in life. Okay, let's ask a very difficult question. I was actually having this conversation with my 21-year-old daughter about, do we have a personal mission? Do we have a personal mission? Do we believe that? Have you, each one of us, been sent down to this world to fulfill something? Right? Now, in the bigger, in the bigger picture of Judaism, this world, the next world, of course there's a mission. You and I, we all have to keep the mitzvot, form a relationship with God, and then when we die, we're going to go up to the pearly gates and God's going to be very happy with us. I don't think that's the question. The question is, are there specific things that you're meant to do in this world, which either, number one, are very specific to a certain a certain development, or I want to use the word perfection because I don't know if we can reach perfection, but were we sent, there's these stories, of, Kabbalists telling people, well, you know why your wife gives you a hard time because in your last life you gave your wife a hard time, so now it's your time to be on the receiving end, right? But in that sense, yeah, there are certain personal things that we've been sent to this world for, in order to, the Hebrew word so rich, mitakein, in order to fix, right? In order to develop, to grow, to be. Then there's a more, I think even a bigger question. Do we have a mission within history? Did God put us here on earth that we need to fulfill a role because it is part of the development of world history, right? It's important that Nitzan Bergman came to the world, and God has given me this mission to lead this webinar, right? This is part of my mission because Tracy needed to hear something, and Uri something else, and Mark something else. Now, do we believe in that? Do we believe that? Yeah, we'd like to believe it, right? We'd like to believe it. It gives our lives great meaning, right? When we just inwardly focused, and that's all. A lot of what happens around us is not that meaningful. But if we would stop to think, wait, maybe, I'm playing a role here. I have a role to play in my in this world, in my community, in my family, and
It's done. You're reminding me as you're talking about the question of our, what we have and being jealous of others in our role. There's years ago this movie with Uma Thurman, I can't remember what it was, where she's able to go back in time and leave herself clues on how to solve a problem. And so she gets each little bit of clue. She has to figure out what she's supposed to do with that. So when I'm thinking, talking about lenses and looking through a lens of, well, what have I been given? That should be my clues as to what my mission is. In particular, the things that are unique to me would tell me what's my unique mission, whereas things that are common with others may be more subject to more common mission. Does that resonate?
You said that very quickly, and there's a lot in that. But yes, I think it does. Meaning, like I'll tell you, the first pilot program I did with Project Aseret was with two guys that were part of my community in Cape Town. And they were prepared to go for 10 weeks, and we met for an hour a week, and I taught them and we discussed. And at that stage, I taught from 1 to 10. I started with 1 and I went to 10. And when we got to 10, and we asked, we had this conversation, right? So, of course, Mark, you're right? Understanding that you have a personal mission and being focused on that is the antidote, right? That's the antidote to coveting, and we'll explain a bit more. But when we got to number 10 and we were speaking about how each one of us is unique and we each have a personal mission, they asked, well, what is our mission? How do you know it? And I put the question back to them. I didn't tell them, I had no clue, but I as a good educator, sometimes you do that. I put the question back to them. What do you think? And it was amazing because they both at the same time realized, oh, to keep the other 9 commandments, right? To look at the world and to fulfill life through, and not through developing one's relationship with God, through being, careful with what are the powers in this world, being sensitive to the kedusha, the holiness in this world. They went through all 10, all 9, and was basically, well, yeah, I got to do. And then my question was, so, who are the people? Because the world is of people, right? History is the human history that we're talking about. Who are those people that you are going to affect in your life? What, when you think about your mission of being sent here, obviously to help others, who am I here to help? And the answer, I think, and it's based on something in honoring parents, but the answer is you don't really choose, God does. So your parents are the ones that you need to honor. What's my mission? My mission is that I need to honor my parents, my wonderful mother and my father. Right? That was Nitzan Bergman's mission. What exactly that fixes in the world, I'm not that sure. I don't really see, but I do, I think a respectful, honoring relationship that creates a sense of continuity, that creates a sense of legacy and heritage within our family is a very positive thing for not only the 3 of us, myself and my parents, but for my wife and my children, and going further, please God, right, into future generations. So that's my parents. Now, what about do not steal? Who is it that you should not steal from? Who is it that whose property you should respect and whose dignity you should respect? Well, it's the people you interrelate, you integrate with, the people, not integrate, the people you live with, right? The most obvious people not to steal from are your neighbors. Is the little shop up the corner with the old man that when you ask him if he has a certain brand of chocolates and goes to the back to see, right? That you don't slip a little toaster or egg into your pocket, right? He's the guy that you're not meant to steal from. And that means that your part of your mission is in this society, right? Where I'm living, well, it becomes a more civilized, a more aligned place to world vision, this vision of not only individual, but of society. Now, I think in terms of career, how many big choices do we make in life? How many really big choices do we make? I think 3. I think there's 3 really big choices, and some people make them more often than more than just 3. Some people just make them 3 times in their life. Number 1, and the order, I think it's actually changed quite a lot over time, but the order, it could go, there's no specific order here. Some people, right? The first one is who you marry. Your marriage partner is one of the big 3. Right? That defines so much about how you're going to live, who's going to be your wife, who's going to be your husband, and your children. Number 2 is where you live, because that defines your community, that defines your friends, that defines your immediate, practical interactions. That's the word I'm looking for. Those are your interactions. And number 3 is your career. Besides that, most of us, right? Most of us are making daily choices within that frame, within the frame of what we do, our career, where we are, right? Where we live and we work. You could break that up into two. And who we married to and our family. That really defines the playing ground, right? That's the arena of operation. That's the playing ground that we are living in. So, in and it's interesting. It's interesting that we find the Talmud, which is the book of spiritual insight, right? It's the defender of God. The Talmud tells us that before a person is born, there's a voice in heaven. There's a workings in heaven preparing for this new child, and it says, "Say ploni laploni," which means this field, 3310 Labyrinth Road, Baltimore, Maryland, 21215. My birthday is on August the 14th. This field goes to Nitzan Bergman, right? So even though I think I made that choice very carefully, apparently it's predestined. The second thing is, right? Pliny la Pliny. We have this belief in, there's the Talmud, that even before you, at the beginning of conception, a voice goes out in heaven and says, "Oh, Mazel Tov, it's a shidduch," right? I have to tell you my favorite shidduch joke. Sorry. Interlude. So there was a great rabbi in Europe. His name was the Chotem Sofer, and he was the Hungarian giant. I mean, this man, and he had a daughter. He had a daughter, and he lived a long time ago. I guess 1700s maybe. And his daughter's husband died young. People died young then. So she was a widow. She was a young widow. And then there was another rabbi in Galicia called Rabbi Akiva Eger. Now, Rabbi Akiva Eger was also this giant of a rabbi, and Nebuch, his wife, died. So Shadchan had a brilliant idea, right? Shadchan said, "Well, let's marry Rabbi Akiva Eger. He is now a widower, to this widow, to the Chotem Sofer's daughter." So she went to work. So she comes to the Chotem Sofer and says, "You know, I've got an idea for your daughter." So he goes, "Who?" So she goes, "Rabbi Akiva Eger." And he's like, "What? He's a gaon. He is like known as the brightest mind rabbi in the whole of Europe, right? And he's such a Talmud Chacham, he's such a tourist. And it says in the Talmud that a person should marry the daughter of a Talmud Chacham. A person should try to marry the daughter of a rabbi, of a tourist, a Talmud master. So, and I'm a Aretz. I'm a simpleton, right? So I don't think the shidduch's gonna work so well. So she's like, pity, because it's such a good idea. So then she goes off to Rabbi Akiva Eger, and she says to him, "You know, I am very sorry to hear that you lost your wife. I've got an idea for a new one, for a shidduch for you." "Who?" "Oh, the wife of, the daughter of the Chotem Sofer." "What of the Chotem Sofer? Do you know who he is? He's the giant of Hungary, right? He's the king of the biggest rabbi of Hungarian Jewry. He knows the whole Torah." And it says in the Talmud that one should marry one's daughter to a Talmud Chacham, to a Torah sage. And what can I do, right? Well, I don't know anything. I'm a Aretz. I'm a simpleton. So the Shadchan goes, "Whoa, brilliant! 2 Amaretzim." Yeah. Or in English, brilliant, 2 simpletons. And that's how she made the shidduch. Okay. So the Talmud tells us, you think you choose where to live, God puts you right there, right? Actually, I can actually tell a true story. I mean, it might reveal how stupid I am, but that's okay. I'll go on that risk. When I came in 2007, in 2007, I did a trip around America looking for a community that we were going to move to. I went to Silver Spring, Baltimore, Atlanta, Los Angeles, New York, home, back to Cape Town. And I was checking out different communities. And I came to Baltimore, and it was kind of, I think it was even in October, which is quite late in the year here. Normally the weather is not so good. But it was 3 glorious days in the fall, right? It's beautiful here. You know, the leaves had changed color. I was not used to such a dramatic fall environment, and it was just 3 beautiful days. And I was like, well, nice place, you know, I could live here. And I was coming from Cape Town. Now, if you can't, in South Africa, there's just unbelievable weather all the time, right? The only difference is that Cape Town has winter rain and Johannesburg has summer rain. This is the big difference, right? So me, the Chochem says, and I remember I actually stayed with Rabbi Heinemann. I said, tell me, you know, when does it rain in Baltimore? Do you have summer rain or do you have winter rain? And he looked at me like I was nuts. And he said, I think it's pretty even throughout the year. We get rain in all seasons over here in Baltimore. And I thought to myself, well, I guess I'll learn to live with that. And that was my entire inquiry into the weather in Baltimore. I have to be honest. Had someone really, we arrived then in 2008 on January the 28th, and there was about 3 feet of snow on the ground, and it was freezing. It was, you know, it could have been in the single digits Fahrenheit. My wife looks at me, goes, what are you, where did we arrive? And I looked at her going, I don't know, this is strange, right? I really don't believe I would have. Actually, after a few months of being here, someone offered me a job in Chicago, and I turned it down because I did not want to live in Chicago weather. I was like, this is bad enough. I'm not going to do worse. So I don't think I would have arrived. I would have never lived here if it wasn't for that ridiculous, way of going about it. Right? God definitely, either my stupidity or God led me to Baltimore. But now I see why we're here. Right? Now I see many signs why we needed to be here, why it's good for us to be here. Okay, so what about one's profession? Do we really choose our profession? So I haven't found such a convincing proof for my theory, but there was a great book written by Rabbi Ibn Fukua, the Chovos HaLevavos, the Duties of the Heart, which is considered a classic of Jewish thinking. And he's early, 12th century, maybe 13th century. And he says that God has put into each one of us a certain leaning and understanding of our vocation. Right? We are drawn to that which we are suited to. We see, we might look at the world, whatever, but we kind of gravitate to the profession that we are meant to do. Now, obviously, you can ask me the question. Some people have drastic changes of profession. I don't know all the answers, but the point that I'm trying to make is that sometimes we think we're making such big decisions and, we're in control. We're not. We're absolutely not. And it's much more about finding that peace within that the world we live in is where we're meant to be, right? Now, I definitely will say, to be sure, if someone is very unhappy in a marriage, if someone's very unhappy where they live, if someone's very unhappy where they work, change. Do whatever you can to change. But you can't change every day. In fact, only a few times in your life you can change. It's not built for those sort of decisions. The daily decisions of life are dealing with your parents, your spouse, your children, your community, and your work and its environment, right? And that's kind of static. That's the environment. You then, your mission, your life's mission is to do what's right, to do good, to be an influence for good in that environment for those people. So yes, I think very much that the way to not covet, is to realize, it's also when you start to think in this way, you realize how specifically different you are to any other human being. I say specifically. I say specifically carefully. We are generally very similar. That's why we can relate to each other. Otherwise, right, we can understand each other. I feel for you. I understand you. But specifically, we all live such different lives. No one lives with my wife. No one lives with my children. No one has those relationships. It's unbelievable how specific they are. So it's that specificity that we should focus in and say, that's my life. That's my mission. And how far that goes also will be a function also, I think, of what we call hashgacha pratit, which means God's providence. Right? Not every person who's very clever becomes that successful. Right? Not every person that's talented is able to express that talent and become recognized. Not every person, right? There are very few people that really become huge influences in our world. Most people really just have a small sphere of influence, but that's okay. I honestly believe that when we get to heaven, God's never going to ask us, how many people did you touch? How many, he's not going to say, well, were you a world influencer? He's going to ask the world influencers, well, what did you do? I gave you the opportunity to influence the world. How did you do? But whether we get there or not, we can set our sights on it. I think, this is something in terms of having goals. I think it's good to reach for the stars. Right? It forces us to work better. It focuses us on what we're doing. But we might not reach the stars. Right? We might have a small sphere of influence in our life. But that's okay, because that's how far it goes. So, for example, we try to be as good and as successful and as far-reaching as we can. And as far as that goes is as far as that goes, right? We might not have the opportunities. We might not, so much I know recent, I don't know about recent actually, I haven't kept up, but you know, it's one of the American inventions was the self-help book to success. Right? A person, if you just follow these rules, you can be a successful person. And you know that's a terrible denial of God, of God's role in this world. Because there are many people that already try the right things, but they're not in the right time at the right place. Right? There's only one president. There can't be more than, okay. So that's the idea, Tracy. That's the idea of putting on a set of glasses that we've taken do not covet. We've taken do not covet and said, well, okay, I understand that we're not meant to covet, but let's think about what is it leading us to. The Midrash says that when God spoke the Ten Commandments, the people answered in the positive. So one of the examples given is when God said, do not murder, God, the people said, we'll love each other, right? So you can't just, it's not just about not coveting, it's about looking at the world and as an individual and seeing the opportunities and challenges of life as a gift. That's a disposition. That's an amazing disposition for life. Okay, Noah.
I'm wondering if the belief in Hashgacha Pratit is required to be able to walk around with that feeling of mission and that I've got everything I need to be able to, that I've got everything I need. Or can you still have that without believing in divine intervention?
What do you think? Or anyone?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Well, the question, so if you believe in a divine mission and divine intervention and God gives you everything you need, then yeah, you've got your mission, you've got your tools, and why look at anybody else's? But, you know, what about those of us who are maybe not so sure about divine intervention, that God has his hand in everything, and can those people also not covet? Can they also look at that and say, well, I've got everything I need? Or, you know, they don't know. Maybe they don't have everything they need. If, you know, there's luck and randomness in the world, and maybe you just rolled the wrong dice, and you know, you got what you got, and you got to make the best of it. And you can still have a positive attitude, but you may not have the comfort in knowing that you definitely have everything you need. And sometimes you just be sad, and that's just, life sucks sometimes.
I think, no, I think people can be accepting, like you say, right? They could say, well, okay, that's the way the cookie crumbles, right? I think people are accepting of it. I don't know how embracing they can be. I have a friend, Avram Baruch Gundel, Brian Gundel, and he posted something on Facebook the other day, which was very cute. He posted, he said, I was taking the garbage out, and I was thinking to myself, oi, I have to take out the garbage. And then I thought, wait a second, I get to take out the garbage. So, right, I almost wrote, do you mind coming to my house when you finished with your house? Because that would be really nice.
Well, does he believe that that's his God's purpose, or does that believe that it is a purpose and it is a mission, not a mission that was handed to him, but a mission that he's chosen?
It's looking at everything positively versus negatively.
Yeah, but I think deep down we are nagged by what, yes, it's very positive that I get to take out the garbage, but why me? Why my neighbor has a maid that does it for him? Right? How do you ever answer that question without saying, well, no, you know what? God has a different plan for me. And part of my plan is to take out the garbage.
Yes, because you never know what that taking out the garbage is going to lead to. Yeah, you have to sort of look at life. If you're going to look at life positively, everything you do, every moment you walk, you're pushing a pebble that's going to roll down the hill, that's going to cause something else to happen. You don't know what your work walking through life is going to create different ripples and different things that will change the world.
Yeah.
And so I think the ultimate thing is, and I think for this year, it's about living a Torah life, using that as your self-help book versus searching for another self-help book through another religion or something. That we got the Torah. It's our self-help book. Use it. Live that. And then everything else we do will fall into place.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure I have the answer though. What do you, I hear what you're saying, but so are you saying that, so this idea of a mission, does it rely on belief in Hashgacha Pratit, or you can believe you have a mission
I need
even without
Hashgacha
Hashgacha Pratif. What's that definition?
Or maybe it's
God-
an evolution.
God has a personal interest in you. God is personally involved in your life.
You just have to discover that.
You can discover, right? That's an interesting question. How do you come to that belief? Do you just accept it? Do you choose it? Do you come to it? That's good. But Noah's question is, can a person without belief in God accept his lot in life?
Let me correct. No, you could believe in a God, but a God that created the world, but not necessarily one who has an interest in your personal life. They're just more interested in the big picture. So
Right.
just to clarify.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, you could definitely could.
I'm not sure God has an interest in our personal life, but God's reason for creating us and creating the world was for us to recognize that he is the one who did it, to show that, not gratitude, that acknowledgement.
Alina Volcano.
Okay, but does we're talking about something very specific here. To accept the hardships and the challenges of life, to accept them, to embrace them, to say, you know what, I need to deal with these difficulties, with these situations which might be unpleasant, because they are the best thing in the world for me. Right? And the truth is that when we talk about, Noah uses this word, Hashgacha Pratit, God's personal interest in your life. I think it has to do with something we call bitachon, trust. Do you trust God? Do you trust God so much so that you're like, okay, God, this is what you've determined the best thing in the world for me is to be in Manhattan during COVID, right? I needed that. I needed to go through that and deal with that, which was quite different, I believe, to being in Baltimore during COVID. So if you believe that, you can have a very strong and positive look at life, right? You could say, well, okay, well, what is God asking of me, or what does God want for me in this situation? Maybe it's an opportunity to learn to be by myself, to become more at peace with myself. I have no clue. But there would be positive developments from that. You're a doctor. Wow. That's a very different role in the case of a pandemic, right? To be there for other people, to help them, to heal them in a way you've never done before, to guide them, to be compassionate and helping. But that comes from a very deep belief and trust in God, right? That you don't turn around and say, but, oh yeah, could be in Baltimore, right? It could have been different. No, what do you think? You keep on asking all of us. I vote for God. It's a necessity. It's a necessity for embracing difficulties in life. Anyone else? Let's do a poll. Yeah. Tracy, what are you voting?
Okay. I have a few thoughts. So I think that it's that God has a mission in our life that he's running it, and accepting life on life's and to accept life on life's terms doesn't always make life great, okay, but it makes it easier. Like, just because I accepted that this is what my mission is from Hashem, doesn't mean I'm always going to like that reality, but I can move forward with it. I don't have to dwell on it so much. I don't have to, be miserable about it, because this is what it is. So the sooner I accept it, and that's my choice. Hashem gave us choice. He gave us choice. And so the sooner I accept that this is what it is, I can move forward, not move on, move
Did he
forward.
really give us choice?
What's that?
Did he really give us choice?
Yes, he really did give us choice.
Because
And it's our choice, and in our choice, he said in Deuteronomy, I gave you these laws of good and evil, life and death. Choose life so that you and your descendants shall live.
Wow, that's a beautiful verse.
what about if everybody has a shidduch? What about people that never get married, never find their beshert?
I thought of that too, and I've been married twice. All right, because I couldn't figure it out. I loved it so much the first time I had to try it again. But I've been single now for more than about 10 years, and I'm lonely, and I'm wondering if I'm going to get another shot at it. To be honest with you, I may not. I'm not always happy about that fact, but
If you've got a shot, you
but
had
it's not.
two
But
shots
it's not
already.
stopping my life. But it's not stopping me. Some days I get miserable and I get weepy and like woe is me kind of stuff. But for the most part, I don't. Then I was thinking about the person who is jealous of the maid that's taking out the garbage. That he's got a maid to take out the garbage. But the reason that someone else might be taking out the garbage is because he doesn't have legs. That shut everybody up. And the other thing I was thinking of is, as far as the sphere of influence, that I may have a small sphere of influence. I might affect one person's life, and that's my total sphere of influence. But that one person whose life I might have affected might be the person that winds up going to school and discovering the cure for Alzheimer's that will affect the whole world.
The butterfly effect.
Yeah.
So that goes to my thing about you walk a path and you kick a rock, and that rock goes rolling down the hill, and it rolls into something else, which rolls into something else. That's the same type of
Right, on the same line.
thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I've had a couple of different careers. I was a dental assistant for a while, and then I moved to Las Vegas, and I became a wedding planner, and I planned amazing events, and I wound up, doing this and doing that, and I wanted to have a much bigger influence than I think I was really capable of, but now I know what I love to do. I love books. I love teaching people. I know my 3 values in my life are curiosity, creativity, and connection. I love to learn things and I love to share with people. And I still do events, and I host book events, and I read great books, and I share my love of books with people, and I talk about them. And I'm also a gift registry consultant at the Bay in Toronto. So, well, when I have a job, but I also think that people, they become, they go to university to be what their parents want them to go into, to be the lawyer, to be the doctor, to be this and that. And then as they get older, some people say, you know what, I don't like that. I'm going to change majors and they realize it pretty young. Some people change their careers, much later in life, and they do a whole different thing. But like you said, you have a certain set of skills that you were gifted with by Hashem. You have certain personality traits that you were gifted with by Hashem. Those are never going to change. I know I would never be a doctor. I know I don't have those skill sets, or not all of them anyway. But so there are certain career paths that I know that I have a choice from based on what I was given.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
anyway.
I think
I'll shut up now.
we all actually find you fascinating, and I am actually have let you speak much longer than I normally. Maybe I should have, but you're fascinating, amazing. Thank you for sharing that so honestly as well. So
Sorry for running off.
no, that was great. Noah, what do you want to? Where are you with your thinking?
I'm thinking that, belief in personal divine intervention, maybe not so black and white. It's not either you have it or you don't. And I'm not sure about that. But I think for those of us who believe in divine intervention, this idea of jealousy or looking over the fence doesn't even have to be taught to you. It's so obvious. Well, of course, I got my mission. It's every day it's updated to what I need. And so it's really easy. You don't even really need a commandment for it, as long as you have that truly innate belief. And then for those of us who don't have that truly innate belief, it's not so simple. It's not a matter of knowing that you have what you need, but choosing this idea that if you focus on a mission that you chose, then, well, maybe just, and it's not about mission, it's about what's better for your life. If you're constantly looking at your neighbor, you're going to be unhappy. And if you focus on what you have, you will be happier. It's not about what God does or what mission God has for you. It's more about what's going to lead to more happiness in your life.
I think it's ultimately using the Torah as our eyeglasses that brings everything that comes before you into focus. And as I said before, that being your self-help book. And that's going to be the way to fulfill your ultimate missions, whatever that is in life. But you need to have the Torah as your guidebook, your direction, your GPS.
Right, but it's interesting that you could view the world that way, but without really thinking about a personal mission. I think you could understand it. Well, that's my duty. That's what I need to do with my life. Okay, I want to end now because it's getting very late. The point, though, which I think is wonderful, and you might be thinking why I think it's wonderful, is that the uniqueness of the Ten Commandments, right? We're going to have Shavuot on Monday, on Sunday night, Monday. God gave us the Torah in the form of the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments contain the entire Torah. The work that we need to do is to study them and talk about them, right? So this conversation that we've had is exactly what we need to do with each of them, because we need to refine and we need to discuss and we need to hear what other people think, and we need to, in order for it to become a disposition for our lives, in order that, like Mark said, to put on the glasses, right? Well, you got to know what the glasses say. And you got to think about that. You got to know that. You go, oh wow, you know. I remember Tracy said one thing, and then Noah said another. They had that question, and then, right? Everyone has their different opinion, actually, and a different way of relating to these subjects. But this is really the as opposed to, I think, any other mitzvah. As opposed to any mitzvah in the Torah. The Ten Commandments demand this sort of level of understanding and grasp and what I'm looking for, integration. To integrate them into our lives means to go over them and over them, to turn them over, to discuss them, to really think in these terms one by one in order to really appreciate what they are. So I know we had a very specific and interesting conversation, but that's exactly what I wanted to happen, because that to me is what the Ten Commandments are all about. So, any closing thoughts or questions?
I was going to say that I am in I'm in a 12-step program, and you know, with a 12-step program, of course, you don't have to believe in a specific religion to be in a 12-step program. It's just a higher power. But I think sometimes with, you know, yes, that, you know, the Torah has, so that might be something that Noah was referring to, is that you might not necessarily have a religion to believe in, but, you know, it says, you know, that I'm basically unmanageable. I have a thing, and I am manageable, and I haven't been able to figure it out. So obviously there's got to be something above me that can figure it out better than I can. So there's that. But I think sometimes with all religions, even Judaism and Torah, if you don't have a certain, you know, there are ways where we can take it to extremes, which isn't healthy either. And so there's, you know, maybe that's what Talmud does, is it tells us how to regulate, and like you said, how to integrate Torah into our lives in a way that we can get along with ourselves and the others in the world. But I think that there's a balance, right? Like I think
for sure.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Nice to meet you. All right, everyone. Wishing
Thank you very much.
Wishing everybody a Shavua, Chag Sameach.
And enjoy. If you haven't downloaded the Project Aseret Haggadah for Shavuot, we have that. You could email me. And thank you. Good night.
Just
Thank you.
just
Have a
before
good
you
night.
go, Susan, I guess it's my first time meeting you. I hope you
Hi.
shep a lot of nachas from your son. I've talked with him many times, and I found him to be such an amazing individual. So you've raised a good one. If there's anything in the 10 Commandments relating to parents, I hope he's doing them well.
Well, I thank you for that. That is very, that makes me feel great. But he is a great man,
Yes, he is.
a great man. And he has,
Oh, thanks, Mom.
You should be very proud of him.
I'm very proud. I'm very proud of him, as I am of all my family. And, I seem to hope that I've done a great job. They're all very nice people, but this one gives us a lot of pleasure. And since he's got religious, because as you know, our beginnings were not. I've taken, or should I say in the last 10 years, when he has, made it more of his life, I'm interested in it. I can't obviously, oh gosh, sorry, I've also got a little bit of senior whatevers. But I can't, oh, I know exactly what I want to say. Give of myself. But I love hearing him and I love learning. I love learning. And it's been a great thing to have him come up with a completely different way of life for us, really, because it is a different way of life. And he's brought up these wonderful children, he and Irina, and we have a lovely, lovely time with them. So I've got two parts of my life. One is the one when we say we have two kitchens. We call the one the kosher kitchen for when the kosher kids come to town, and how we've lived for the last 10 years. And it's been absolutely wonderful. We've made it work.
So nice.
Right, Nick?
So nice.
Hmm?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for telling me
Wishing you all
about
a
Of course.